Hey guys, I'm back for a brand new year. Welcome to That's Cakeable in 2021. So not a great deal's changed around here since I saw you last. It's a little bit more bare behind me than last time. Start of the new year thing, had to do a cull, which meant throwing out my display cakes. Always a sad moment. If you are new here, hey guys, I'm Janine. This is That's Cakeable, and I would love if you would subscribe to my channel by hitting that little subscription bar down the bottom and clicking the notification bell so you're informed every time I upload a new video. So my first cake of 2021 was the same as my first cake of every year. My youngest baby turned 18 this year. Being a January 2nd baby, of course, his cake always comes first. So this year I made an iridescent watercolour stencil bling drip cake. Yep, that's a mouthful. I'll teach you loads and loads of great techniques that you can apply to many other sorts of cakes. Mash them all together like I did, or you can separate them and make something completely unique. All right, well, I guess I've rambled long enough, excited about the new year and all. So let's get on with the tutorial. So I'm starting with this sexy square number, which is nice and tall, 6 inches wide, 7.5 inches tall, which technically makes it not a square. If you want to see how I get the sharp edges on my square cakes, I will put a link in the description below. I've then got 4 fondant panels that I've cut slightly taller and slightly wider than each side of that cake, and I set them aside to dry. This is how I made them. This is actually the top of the cake, but I made the top exactly the same as I made the sides. So I've taken some white fondant and rolled it out and then put some spaces next to each side to get the same thickness of fondant from top to bottom. Nice and even. I smooth that fondant out and then spritz the top of my cake with some water. Use a brush to smooth over the top, and it's nice and sticky, ready to pop the fondant on top. Using a smoother once again, getting it nice and smooth there on top, which is I guess why they call it a smoother. And then I take a blade and I cut the excess off. Taking that same blade with a nice flat blade edge, I go right around the edges of the cake to make it nice and flush. Using a smoother again, I just push it up against the sides to make sure it's nice and neat. The top of the cake is now complete. Now taking those panels, which have had some time to dry, I'm going to attach them to the sides of the cake, and I'm doing that using some stiff royal icing, which is the edible glue of champions. Once you stick something with that, it's going nowhere. I place the panel up on the side of the cake and use my smoother to make sure it's nice and secured, and then realize that I had black ganache all over the smoother. Don't do what I did. It's alright, I cleaned it up. Everything was fine. I went ahead and did the same thing on the opposite side. Using both smoothers, one on either side, to push it up against the side of the cake and make sure it's going nowhere. Okay, so to cut the excess off those panels, I place a stainless steel scraper against the cake and use my blade and just cut down the side to cut off the excess. I put the smoother there just to make sure that my blade doesn't dig into that nice smooth ganache finish, and it makes life a lot easier. I'm doing exactly the same to put the back panel on. And then to cut the excess off the top, once again, I use that smoother so I don't dig into that newly fondanted top. It's not even a word. So I don't break into the smooth fondant that I've just put on top, because that's still fresh. I just use my smoothers to firm up the edges, make sure it's nice and stuck, and we're ready to go. Now I've deliberately left the front panel off for this reason. I'm taking some shimmer dust in purple, blue, white, and way too much pink that I'll just scoop up. You didn't see that happen, don't worry about it. I've taken a nice fluffy brush and I'm just plopping it all over that panel. There is no rhyme or reason to this, just spots of colour everywhere. And brushing it in with the fluffy brush. Now I'm taking some decorator's alcohol and a makeup sponge that I promise is brand new and has not been used on my face, and I'm dabbing all over that panel to integrate the colours, I guess that's what I'm doing. And now with a different makeup sponge, a round makeup sponge which is also clean, I dab it first into the alcohol, then into the powder, and then onto the panel. Gives it an even different effect. I love it. I'm using more purple than anything else because that's the theme I'm going for. But of course you can do whatever you like. Until you're happy, which I was. Look at that. So shiny, so pretty. Now I'm taking this stuff, which is chocolate polish. Yes, it's used for chocolate, but it worked beautifully on this. This is the colour POINTY, and it looks white in the pot, but when you apply it to the surface and rub it in with a fluffy brush, it gives off a pink sort of luminescence. And I used another colour called Peony, and that made a purple iridescent sort of look. And that was that panel done. Now, of course, the other panels and the top had to match the front panel, so I went ahead and did that while the panels were on the cake. Did I have glitter and sparkle everywhere? Yes, everywhere, for days. But look at that payoff. So pretty. Okay, now let's show you how to make this stencil. So pick the image you want from the internet. I'm going for a picture of Zendaya from the show Euphoria. And I've saved the image. Make sure the lighting's good. You want the lighting to be good. Not too harsh, not too dark. Now I've saved that to my desktop and I'm going to open Photoshop. And then open that image. Open. There it is. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is duplicate that image in case I muck anything up. And now I'm going to work with the copied image. Firstly, I'm going to go up to Image, into Adjustments, over to Posterize. And then taking it between a level 4 and 6, I found with a well-lit image generally works well. Press OK. Then back up to Image. And then you want to go to Adjustments and Threshold. And then just slide this little slider guy until you're happy with how it looks. Clean it all up. Now moving left. Yeah. Nope. Yes. Okay. Around about there looks good. Press OK. And it's good. Now I want to get rid of this black here. So I'm just taking my magic wand tool, which is up here. And I'm just doing a general trace around that black area. Don't have to be too precious, but getting most of it out helps now. I selected that and then cut it. Now I went ahead and did that with all the larger parts, and when you remove that background image, you're left with these grey and white squares, which means that area is transparent. I then pressed Select and Color Select, pressed all the white on the image and clicked OK. And then pressed Cut, and that gets rid of all the rest of the white and makes that transparent. And then just to tidy it up, I grabbed my eraser tool and went around and tidied up all the extra black pieces. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how this image looks, but I want to tidy it up, make it a little neater to make my life easier later on. So I'm saving this image as a PNG onto the desktop. And then I'm opening a little program called Inkscape. I'll put a link in the description below where you can download this. It's a free program. So I've opened it up and now I'm opening that image that we've just saved from Photoshop. Okay. And then on the side there, I've just selected the image. So it's selected. And then I go up to Path and I have to trace bitmap. Okay, when we're in there, we go to multiple scan. I'm putting 2 in here because it's only got 2 colors, the black and white. And I want it smooth and remove background. I want them selected. And I'm despeckling by around about 10. Press OK. And that is done. Now slide over that image. And that's the image you've just created. Now select the one underneath it, which is the original image, and cut. Slide the other image back on top, and that's our new cleaned up image. Okay, now I don't know if you can tell, but this is definitely smoother and cleaner, which will make life easier later on. So what we're going to do now is save this. Now it will save as an SVG, but Photoshop opens SVG, so it's not really a problem. And then close that, quickly back into Photoshop. This part is super simple. Open that SVG we've just saved, which is right there. Okay, there it is. And then I'm just going to go into curves very quickly, slide that slider to the right to make it darker. And we have a nice, clean image ready to turn into a transfer. I'm going to print that out, making sure it's the right size for the cake that you are putting it onto, which I've already done. And print. And there we have it. There's our image, all finished. Now this part is a little tedious, but very doable. So what we have to do is cut around all the black area. We want all the black area out, the white area in. That's what we want to happen. And of course I had to make it difficult for myself because look at all that black in their hair. How am I going to do that? Well, I'll show you. Don't worry too much about the really tiny parts like the highlights in the eyes. We can add them in later. I'm just doing this on, it's a light piece of cardstock and an X-Acto blade, so no special materials required. Out comes the face. There we go. You can see where we're going now, right? I cut out that white section of the hair also, as you can see, and a whole lot of other little tiny white pieces and put them aside. And then I was like, how am I going to make this work because the rest's black? But this is how I did it. I just like to make life difficult for myself. A lot of other images are going to be a lot more simple than this, but, well, like I said, I like to make life difficult for myself. So this is how I did it. I just cut that whole section out and now I've got a face frame, well, a head frame, really. And I'm popping that over the top. And then I'm just using the original image to sort of have a look if I've got everything in the right place. I do give myself a little bit of artistic license, but you know, in the end it works out lovely. So with all of those little pieces, you want to get some vegetable shortening, just pop a little bit underneath them and stick them down to that panel. You don't want them slipping and sliding around while you're stenciling. It could get really messy. So I stick all of those pieces down, including that outer frame area. And I'm using Edible Art Decorative Cake Paint in black. Another clean makeup sponge. Yes, it's clean. And I dab that all over the stencil. Don't rub, just dab or you'll make a mess. As simple as that. Now we want to remove the stencil. How exciting! And so she slid it over. Don't slide it over. As you can see, I made a mess, but I cleaned it up. No big deal. I'm taking the awesome More Pointy tool from Moorish Cakes. I'll put a link in the description below where you can get this tool that I use for everything to remove all those pieces of stencil. And then if you want to add extra little details, of course you can take a fine paintbrush with that Edible Art paint and add them in. Edible Art paint in white to fill in those little highlights that I told you before not to worry about. So I've just taken the original image once again, using it as a reference and adding in those highlights in the eyes. There we go, very simple. Now I'm taking a little bit of piping gel for underneath the eyes. Of course you don't have to do this. And I'm adding a little bit of glitter on top of that because Zendaya's character in Euphoria always wears glitter under her eyes. So I wanted to make it a little bit more true to life. I've used a slightly thinner royal icing on the front panel and attaching that to the cake once it's dried really, really well. Okay, make sure it's really dry. Now what I've done is taken some piping gel and heated it slightly and put it into a piping bag. And I'm running it along the top of the cake, creating a drip, just like you would with like a ganache drip. Now, I've got a small ball tool here and I'm making little divots in each of those drips. And these will house our medium-sized dragées. It just helps them not fall off the cake, having those little divots. Then I've got some tiny gold dragées that I'm putting all the way down each drip. Yes, there were dragées everywhere as well as glitter. It was a fun cleanup session after this, but hey, the payoff, well worth it. I'm using tweezers to apply. I found that the easiest way. And then, of course, bling it up a little bit more with some more edible glitter down each of the drips. And you've got a blingy drip. I went ahead and did that on every side of the cake. Okay, so I've got some ice malt that I've melted down here, and I'm adding some pearl airbrush colour and a little bit of edible glitter. Mix that all up. A little bit of purple airbrush colour and just swirling that through. Please people, wear gloves. I ended up with a 3rd degree burn once I had finished doing this. So I had to stop for the day and start the day after because the pain was just far too intense. I'm just pouring my ice malt into some moulds, some flat discs and some sphere moulds, all different sizes. And then I poured a little bit onto the silicone mat, swirled that around, and once it had almost, well not, it hadn't almost dried, it was still pliable. I just made it into a bit of a cup. I had no rhyme or reason where I was going with this either. I just wanted to make an unusual sort of sugar sculpture for the top. I used my blowtorch to heat up the sugar. I've got a disc there and that little cup that I made. Heating up the sugar and using the melted sugar to attach the other sugar pieces. You can see that giant band-aid on that finger that I've gloved up. Yeah, 3rd degree burn. And that was my finished piece, which I put glitter all over to zhuzh it up and make it match the cake. And then I just attached it to the top of the cake with a little bit of piping gel. And added some more glitter just for fun. Some more dragées around the base. And voila, there it is. Stencil cake with bling drip. And that's it guys, that's how you make this iridescent watercolour stenciled bling drip cake. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And like I said earlier, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you're informed every time I upload a new video. Well guys, I hope you had an amazing Christmas and New Year, and I'm looking forward to bringing you loads of new content in 2021. Well, that about wraps that up, so you know, you've got a task to do now. Anybody that's been here a while knows what to do. Come on, tell me. All right, I'll tell you. Go and get your cake on. I will see you next time. Bye for now.